So, Brad Ross, I would love to share my testimony with you guys today. And interestingly enough, it kind of has a theme to it, so maybe this will resonate with some of you guys as well. My theme is control. Like I'm controlling this podium. On May 26, 1975, a young boy sits Indian style on the shag carpet, glued to the console TV, where his hero, Evel Knievel, Paul, was about to jump 13 buses on his motorcycle. It was in hindsight, it was my first recollection of what would be a lifelong compulsion to control things, and my fear of not being in control, and my fear of failure. Evel Knievel made that amazing jump that day, but on landing, he lost control and crashed it. It was an indelible image of control versus out of control that burned deep in the back of my mind. That same year, I watched the violent crash of my parents, their marriage. I witnessed dysfunction through physical anger, through rage. This divorce ushered in an endless list of decisions that were out of my control. Being a textbook definition of a Gen Xer, coupled with preoccupied divorced parents, I was afforded a lot of freedom to explore and experiment with everything. And I had expert guidance of my stepbrother and sisters. You name it, I probably tried it, and I witnessed its destructive control. Fast forward to the 1980s, I found myself disappointed with this image that I kind of created. When I compared myself to others in my class, I decided that, something's missing. I don't want to be this outsider kind of person. And there was other people in the class that had something that I didn't have. They appeared better dressed. They were smarter, they were witty, and they had something, like I said, that I didn't have, and I was trying to figure that out. Through a method of elimination, I deducted that what I was missing was the church activity. In small towns, the church is kind of the hub. This one in particular was right across from City Hall, so if you weren't in City Hall, you were in church. So. Through this, church activity was missing, so I began attending with some of my new friends. This was my first step to image control. It was at an evening service that at altar call that I realized that true missing piece, P-E-A-C-E, and pun is intended there. And it was free. I was bewildered by the fact that I didn't have to actually do anything for it. It was freely given. And all I had to do was ask for it, and then I would have that salvation and freedom and that peace. So I began my walk and my transformation with Him along my side. I abandoned some of my destructive friends, not all of them, but a lot of them, and a purpose to maintain this new Christian life. And this was step 2, image control 2.0. It says in Romans 12:2-3, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good, what is acceptable, and what is perfect. It certainly changed my behavior, and more importantly, my life's course. And at least for a while. Sadly, in 1989, after miserably failing a year in college and working construction, I had the unique opportunity to give college another try. The construction business will motivate you if you ever wonder, having trouble deciding whether you go to college or Motivated by the fear of the alternative and certainly paying for college myself, I took my education seriously and I applied course control. As I focused on my career interest in the arts, I let my guard down. This is something I'm not as proud to tell you guys, but I let my guard down and I began to adopt some creative interpretations of what it meant to be a Christian. These cracks would prove to be the open door to many new destructive habits, and sadly a redaction of my spiritual commitment that I'd made back in high school. I convinced myself that my high school decision to follow Christ was an uneducated, immature experience, and I walked away. I call this my uneducated control. During the next few years in college, I met a young girl whom, after living together, gave me the ultimatum. She said, "Marry me or it's over." I was like, ugh. Even against the advice of the college counselor on college campus, who said to us, "Not a good idea." We tied the knot anyway, but we tied it very loosely, and more importantly, we tied it without Christ at the center. I had effectively handed over total control to my nemesis and to my new wife. In 1999, after having brought 2 boys into the world, I confidently, I could hear myself saying it, swore that I would never put them through what I experienced through divorce. Side note, I once heard that if you focus your attention entirely on an object, an action, or a thing that you want to avoid, you're guaranteed to hit it. 9 years later, we painfully realized that this had not been a wise decision. And it might not work out, but it wasn't guaranteed. During one of my overseas trips, she packed up the boys and moved back to Dallas. I returned from my trip to an empty house where I collapsed out of control. You ever see those on the maps, the arrow, and it said, "You are here"?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had that arrow and it said, "You are here," and it was pointing at failure. My failure was fully realized. I could still hear the words coming out of my own mouth. Nothing good can come out of this. However, but God. Over the next few years, I would fully realize what that arrow meant. You are here. But I also learned probably the most important thing, that unconditional meaning that only Jesus can share with us internally. The meaning of that phrase in the context of him, he said, "Yes, you are here, but so am I." So in all of that, he let me know that he was with me. I had abandoned our relationship, but he had not abandoned me. He was there when no one, seemingly no one on earth, had held me. I don't know if you've ever been in a position like that where every person you reach out to for advice or wisdom, mom, dad, friends, grandparents, counselors, pastors, even my dogs.
Never listen.
Nobody could answer or give me help like he could give me help. 2 Corinthians 12:9 and 10 says, this is Paul speaking, But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. Your power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly in my weakness, so that the power of Messiah may dwell in me for Messiah's sake. Then I delight in the weakness, in the insults, in the distress, in the persecutions, in the calamities. For when I am weak, then I'm strong. So, fast forward to 2003-ish. I'm back in the DFW Metroplex, specifically Frisco, if y'all are familiar with the Metroplex. I had all but given up on finding a cute girl, especially in Frisco. If you know the city stats, they were clearly stacked against me. It was not, it's not supposed to happen. Especially one that be interested in me, a divorced dad with 2 boys. But God once again proved me otherwise. He enticed me to visit a small startup congregation, and it was there that I heard the most beautiful voice come from stage. And it came out of a really super cute girl.
Okay, put that in.
But it went so far beyond that. It was real. It was like an exclusive invitation to join her in this personal concert of praise to God, to Jesus, that actually said, "You are here, and so am I." And it was in real time. It was kind of boom. In 2019, Tiffany and it's 2019, and Tiffany and I, my wife, are happily married 15 years this month. With a daughter, Lily, 13, and 2 boys, Aiden and Eli, who are serving in the Marine Corps somewhere on this planet. I still get emotional when I see and hear my wife lead us into the pure worship of our God, and I encourage it often, as much as possible. You know, at our last testimony workshop, I felt the Lord whisper a word, and He said, "Control." Literally, it really kind of blindsided me. I really never had thought of that as a key word in my world. Control. And then He helped me kind of lace it together. The connections throughout my life. During this time on earth, I've learned that what control means to me is actually releasing control to Him. Because what I've learned over this time is when I'm controlling it, it doesn't always work out as good. But when He controls it, it works out a whole lot better. I don't pretend to have mastered all this, but I'm getting better at it every day. The Lord continually gives me opportunities to relinquish that control. And I'm getting quicker to let go and thank Him for His grace and His mercies. He also reminded me of something, and this, believe it or not, actually came from a secular person, but he put it in context to what he was teaching me. He reminded me that if you have your hands clenched around the controls of something, your hands are no longer open to receive. To receive from Him, to receive what He might have for us. And that's a sad thing. If He can't even give it to us because we're trying to control it, that's an unfortunate So, with that, I would say that he has taught me not only control, how to relinquish control, he's brought me through some very tough times, and probably most importantly, he's taught me that no matter what, he's beside me through thick and thin. And what encourages me is that he never left me, and that all I had to do was just turn right back around and he was there. It's him that gives me the strength to keep going. It's him that gives me the strength to navigate all that goes on in this world. It's him that makes sense out of things that are senseless. But I can't find that in any other place. And I haven't